A Passage to India, Chapter 3. The third act of Cousin Kate was well advanced by the time Mrs. Moore re-entered the club. Windows were barred lest the servants should see their mem-sahibs acting, and the heat was consequently immense. One electric fan revolved like a wounded bird, another was out of order. Disinclined to return to the audience, she went into the billiard room, where she was greeted by, "I want to see the real India," and her appropriate life came back with a rush. This was Adela Quested, the queer, cautious girl whom Ronnie had commissioned her to bring from England, and Ronnie was her son, also cautious, whom Miss Quested would probably, though not certainly, marry, and she herself was an elderly lady. "I want to see it too, and I only wish we could. Apparently the Turtons will arrange something for next Tuesday. It'll end in an elephant ride. It always does. Look at this evening. Cousin Kate. Imagine, Cousin Kate. But where have you been off to? Did you succeed in catching the moon in the Ganges?" The two ladies had happened the night before to see the moon's reflection in a distant channel of the stream. The water had drawn it out so that it had seemed larger than the real moon and brighter, which had pleased them. "I went to the mosque, but did not catch the moon." "The angle would have altered. She rises later." "Later and later," yawned Mrs. Moore, who had tired after her walk. "Let me think. We don't see the other side of the moon out here, no?" "Come, India's not as bad as all that," said a pleasant voice. "Other side of the earth if you like, but we stick to the same old moon." Neither of them knew the speaker, nor did they ever see him again. He passed with his friendly word through red brick pillars into the darkness. "We aren't even seeing the other side of the world. That's our complaint," said Adela. Mrs. Moore agreed. She too was disappointed at the dullness of their new life. They had made such a romantic voyage across the Mediterranean and through the sands of Egypt to the harbor of Bombay, to find only a gridiron of bungalows at the end of it. But she did not take the disappointment as seriously as Miss Quested, for the reason that she was 40 years older and had learnt that life never gives us what we want at the moment that we consider appropriate. Adventures do occur, but not punctually. She said again that she hoped that something interesting would be arranged for next Tuesday. "Have a drink," said another pleasant voice. "Mrs. Moore, Miss Quested, have a drink, have two drinks." They knew who it was this time, the collector, Mr. Turton, with whom they had dined. Like themselves, he had found the atmosphere of Cousin Kate too hot. Ronnie, he told them, was stage managing in place of Major Callender, whom some native subordinate or other had let down, and doing it very well. Then he turned to Ronnie's other merits, and in quiet, decisive tones, said much that was flattering. It wasn't that the young man was particularly good at the games or the lingo, or that he had much notion of the law. But, apparently a large but, Ronnie was dignified. Mrs. Moore was surprised to learn this, dignity not being a quality which any mother credits her son. Miss Quested learned it with anxiety, for she had not decided whether she liked dignified men. She tried indeed to discuss this point with Mr. Turton, but he silenced her with a good-humored motion of his hand and continued what he had come to say. "The long and short of it is, he slaps a sahib. He's the type we want. He's one of us." And another civilian who was leaning over the billiard table said, "Hear, hear." The matter was thus placed beyond doubt, and the collector passed on, for other duties called him. Meanwhile, the performance ended, and the amateur orchestra played the national anthem. Conversation and billiard stopped. Faces stiffened. It was the anthem of the Army of Occupation. It reminded every member of the club that he or she was British and in exile. It produced a little sentiment, and, a useful accession of willpower. The meager tune, the curt series of demands on Jehovah fused into a prayer unknown in England, and though they perceived neither royalty nor deity, they did perceive something. They were strengthened to resist another day. Then they poured out, offering one another drinks. Adela, have a drink. Mother, a drink. They refused. They were weary of drinks. And Miss Quested, who always said exactly what was on her mind, announced anew that she was desirous of seeing the real India. Ronnie was in high spirits. The request struck him as comic, and he called out to another passer-by, "Fielding, how's one to see the real India?" "Try seeing Indians," the man answered, and vanished. Who was that? Our schoolmaster, Government College. As if one could avoid seeing them, sighed Miss Leslie. I've avoided, said Miss Quested. Except my own servant, I've scarcely spoken to an Indian since landing. Oh, lucky you. But I want to see them. She became the center of an amused group of ladies. One said, wanting to see Indians. How new that sounds. Another, natives, why fancy. A third, more serious, said, let me explain. Natives don't respect one any the more after meeting one, you see. That occurs after so many meetings. But the lady, entirely stupid and friendly, continued. What I mean is, I was a nurse before my marriage and came across them a great deal, so I know. I really do know the truth about Indians. A most unsuitable position for any Englishwoman. I was a nurse in a native state. One's only hope was to hold sternly aloof, even from one's patients. Why, the kindest thing one can do to a native is to let him die, said Miss Callender. How if he went to heaven? Asked Mrs. Moore, with a gentle but crooked smile. He can go where he likes as long as he doesn't come near me. They give me the creeps. As a matter of fact, I have thought what you were saying about heaven, and that is why I am against missionaries, said the lady who had been a nurse. I am all for chaplains, but all against missionaries. Let me explain. But before she could do so, the collector intervened. Do you really want to meet the Aryan brother, Miss Quested? That can be easily fixed up. I didn't realize he'd amuse you. He thought a moment. You can practically see any type you like. Take your choice. I know the government people and the landowners. Heslop here can get hold of the barrister crew. While if you want to specialize on education, we can come down on Fielding. I'm tired of seeing picturesque figures pass before me as a frieze, the girl explained. It was wonderful when we landed, but that superficial glamour soon goes. Her impressions were of no interest to the collector. He was only concerned to give her a good time. Would she like a bridge party? He explained to her what that was. Not the game, but a party to bridge the gulf between East and West. The expression was his own invention and amused all who heard it. I only want those Indians whom you come across socially, as your friends. Well, you don't come across them socially, he said, laughing. They're full of all the virtues, but we don't, and it's now 11:30 and too late to go into the reasons. Miss Quested, what a name, remarked Mrs. Turton to her husband as they drove away. She had not taken to the new young lady, thinking her ungracious and cranky. She trusted that she hadn't been brought out to marry nice little Heslop, though it looked like it. Her husband agreed with her in his heart, but he never spoke against an Englishwoman if he could avoid doing so, and he only said that Miss Quested naturally made mistakes. He added, India does wonders for the judgment, especially during the hot weather. It has even done wonders for Fielding. Mrs. Turton closed her eyes at this name and remarked that Mr. Fielding wasn't Pooka, and had better marry Miss Quested, for she wasn't Pooka. Then they reached their bungalow, low and enormous, the oldest and most uncomfortable bungalow in the civil station, with a sunk soup plate of a lawn, and they had one drink more, this time of barley water, and went to bed. Their withdrawal from the club had broken up the evening, which, like all gatherings, had an official tinge. A community that bows the knee to a viceroy and believes that the divinity that hedges a king can be transplanted must feel some reverence for any vice-regal substitute. As Chandapur, the Turtons were little gods. Soon they would retire to some suburban villa and die exiled from glory. "It's decent of the Burra Sahib," chattered Ronnie, much gratified by the civility that had been shown to his guest. "Do you know he's never given a bridge party before? Coming on top of the dinner, too. I wish I could have arranged something myself, but when you know the natives better, you'll realize it's easier for the Burra Sahib than for me. They know him. They know he can't be fooled. I'm still fresh comparatively. No one can even begin to think of knowing this country until he has been in it 20 years. Hello, the mater. Here's your cloak. Well, for an example of the mistakes one makes. Soon after I came out, I asked one of the pleaders to have a smoke with me. Only a cigarette, mind. I found afterwards that he had sent touts all over the bazaar to announce the fact. Told all the litigants, oh, you'd better come to my Vikale Muhammad Ali. He's in with the city magistrate. Ever since then, I've dropped on him in court as hard as I could. It's taught me a lesson, and I hope him. Isn't the lesson that you should invite all the pleaders to have a smoke with you? Perhaps, but time's limited, and the flesh is weak. I prefer my smoke at the club, amongst my own sort, I'm afraid. Why not ask the pleaders to the club? Miss Quested persisted. Not allowed. He was pleasant and patient, and evidently understood why she did not understand. He implied that he had once been as she, though not for long. Going to the veranda, he called firmly to the moon. His sais answered, and without lowering his head, he ordered his trap to be brought round. Mrs. Moore, whom the club had stupefied, woke up outside. She watched the moon, whose radiance stained with primrose the purple of the surrounding sky. In England, the moon had seemed dead and alien. Here, she was caught in the shawl of night, together with earth and all the other stars. A sudden sense of unity, of kinship with the heavenly bodies passed into the old woman and out, like water through a tank, leaving a strange freshness behind. She did not dislike Cousin Kate or the national anthem, but their note had died into a new one, just as cocktails and cigars had died into invisible flowers. When the mosque, long and domeless, gleamed at the turn of the road, she exclaimed, "Oh yes, that's where I got to. That's where I've been." "Been there when?" asked her son. "Between the acts." "But, Mother, you can't do that sort of thing." "Can't, Mother?" she replied. "No, really, not in this country. It's not done. There's the danger from snakes, for one thing. They're apt to lie out in the evening." "Ah, yes, so the young man there said." "This sounds very romantic," said Miss Quested, who was exceedingly fond of Mrs. Moore, and was glad she should have had this little escapade. "You meet a young man in a mosque, and then never let me know?" "I was going to tell you, Adela, but something changed the conversation, and I forgot. My memory grows deplorable." And we'll pause here, and we'll continue with this story in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.